I never imagined a single question could shatter everything we built. Everything I believed was solid between us. It wasn't shouted in anger or thrown like an accusation. It slipped out softly, almost casually, as we sat across from each other at the kitchen table, the dim light flickering against his tired eyes. "How many?" Daniel asked. At first, I didn't understand. His voice was calm, but his fists were tight, knuckles white against the wooden table. "How many what?" I whispered. His jaw tensed. "How many men, Emily, before me?" The air in the room turned thick, almost suffocating. We'd always avoided that topic. I believed in leaving the past buried, and Daniel had never pressed. Until that moment. My stomach twisted. A part of me wanted to lie, to say a number that wouldn't wound his pride or make him see me differently. But we had promised each other honesty. Raw, unfiltered honesty. So I told him the truth. Every bit of it. And when the words left my lips, I saw something inside him fracture. He didn't yell, didn't curse. He just stared at me, like he no longer recognized the woman sitting in front of him. A muscle in his cheek flickered. Then he stood. "I need some air," he said quietly. The door shut behind him, and I thought he'd return after a walk. But he didn't. Looking back, the signs were there. The late nights, the quiet dinners, the distance I brushed off as stress. We'd been married 3 years, together for 5. I told myself all couples go through rough patches, but this wasn't one of them. Something had been eating at him for weeks, maybe months. And that night, my answer simply ignited it. I replayed everything in my head, wondering, was the number too high for him? Did he picture me as someone untouched, someone I never was? When we met, I was 27, not perfect, not pure, but real. I had made mistakes, yes. But I had chosen him, loved him. Shouldn't that have been enough? The silence afterward was worse than any argument. Daniel didn't come home that night or the next. He texted once, "Need time." I didn't know where he went, a hotel, a friend's couch, maybe his brother's place a few towns over. The quiet became unbearable. 3 days later, a friend sent me a picture. Daniel at a bar, not drunk, not laughing, just sitting with a glass of whiskey, staring blankly ahead. I wanted to go to him, to tell him the past didn't erase what we had. But deep down, I knew this wasn't really about the number. It was about something deeper, something he couldn't say. When Daniel finally came home, he didn't have a suitcase, just a box. A box full of letters. "I found these," he said quietly, placing a small box on the table. Inside were printed emails, old messages I'd long forgotten. My words, highlighted, written years before him, to an ex I should have erased from my memory. Things I said during a toxic, chaotic time in my life, things I wasn't proud of. "I didn't snoop," Daniel added coldly. "Your email was open on the tablet." Click. Just like that, my heart sank. This wasn't about numbers, not really. It was about what those numbers meant to him. That I had lived, loved, and maybe shamed myself in ways he couldn't unsee. "You said you wanted honesty," I whispered. "I did," he said, voice trembling. "But you didn't give me all of it, Emily. You made it sound like you were just a girl who made a few mistakes. You never told me about this." I looked down at the pages. My words, raw, desperate, ugly. A version of me I'd buried long ago. "I'm not that person anymore," I said softly. "I chose you. I've been faithful. Doesn't that matter?" Daniel's eyes softened for a moment, then turned cold again. "It should. But I can't unknow what I know. I can't unsee it." That night, I realized something painful. Daniel had fallen in love with a version of me that never truly existed. One that was flawed, but only in ways he could forgive. When reality didn't match the image in his mind, he didn't know how to love what was real. He told me he felt betrayed, not because I cheated, but because I let him build a future on a fantasy. "You hid the worst parts of your past," he said. "Now, every time I look at you, I wonder, who else saw you the way I do? Who touched you? Who made you say those things? Do you think I ask you the same?" I snapped through tears. "Do you think I care how many women you had before me? I don't, because I know who you are now." "But I care," he whispered. And that was the beginning of the end. He didn't storm out that night. That would have been easier. Instead, he stayed, silent, distant, sleeping on the couch. I tried everything. Cooking his favorite meals, talking, reaching for his hand. But each time he flinched. Then one morning, I woke to the sound of zippers and drawers closing. "Where will you go?" I asked, barely breathing. "I don't know," he said, avoiding my eyes. "But I can't stay. Every time I close my eyes, I see them. All of them." "Daniel, please," I begged. "You're punishing me for something I can't change." I was honest. "Isn't that what you wanted?" He paused at the door. For a second, I thought he'd turn back. But he didn't. He walked out, and that time it was forever. Weeks passed. Friends took sides. Some said he was insecure. Others said I was reckless. My mother told me I should have lied, that some truths don't save marriages, they break them. I checked my phone every night, hoping for a message. Nothing came. Months later, I saw him at a cafe downtown. He looked thinner, older, but somehow lighter. A woman sat across from him, laughing at something he said. He noticed me, offered a polite nod, then looked away. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering if he ever loved me, or just the version of me he created. People say honesty is the foundation of love. I used to believe that. I still do, mostly. But honesty is a double-edged blade. It cuts both ways. Daniel asked a question because he thought he could handle the answer. I answered because I believed love meant hiding nothing. And somewhere between those beliefs, we lost each other. Would I change what I said? Maybe not. But I would have asked him something first. Do you really want to know, or do you just want the comfort of thinking you do? Because sometimes truth isn't a bridge, it's a match. And once it's lit, the only thing left between you is ashes. Daniel never came back. I heard he moved to another city, started over. I stayed in the apartment where it all ended, not because I was waiting, but because I needed to remember who I was without the weight of his expectations. I still believe in love. I still believe in honesty. But now, I ask more questions before I answer them. Because sometimes the truth doesn't set you free, it sets them free, and leaves you standing in the wreckage, wondering what was left of you.